Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Reinsurance Podcast. I am your co-host, Jerad Lee.
And I'm Ben Rose, and this week we have a special news recap for you for the month of January 2023.
The news recaps are one of my favorite episodes to record each month. It's sort of a whistle-stop tour of all things that are happening in the industry that we so love. So without further ado, let's dive in to probably the most exciting thing, at least from us, at the end of last year, was the amount of volume that Supercede placed in the market, right? So the platform, more than 24 billion in underlying premiums was sort of placed through software and technology that we've put into the market, which is beginning to get this momentum that Reinsurtech is a thing now. And that's super exciting, not just for us, but for what I think it means to the broader sort of developments and acceptance of technology into our space.
Yeah, certainly it's a victory, I think, for everybody who wants to see digital taking hold in reinsurance and giving people a more enjoyable and relaxing working life where they don't have to sit and do repetitive manual tasks all the time.
Yeah. So with that exciting news, though, we'll dive into the rest of the market, what else is happening across sort of the 1-1 recaps that we're getting. Goldman Sachs came out with a really interesting piece that was talking about the hardening of the market quite broadly, and is stuff that we were sort of expecting to see, but they were looking at it with this lens that prices are increasing across all lines, all regions, in a real sort of negative lens as to the impact that will have. But at the same time, recognizing the opportunities it presents for some of the big reinsurers to get rate, most notably the sort of top four.
Yeah, and I think one of the exciting things we saw, again, another banking analyst that came into the conversation here was actually JP Morgan, saying that Lloyd's as a marketplace, which has had a tough time, for quite a while, might be on the cusp of a golden era as it looks at how effectively this balance of specialty business with a pinch of reinsurance was set to sort of remain a hard market for a long time, especially given actually a lot of the withdrawal of reinsurance capacity for specialty classes. There's going to be long-term justification to keep specialty rates higher than they were. So forward-looking, the class is seeing quite good results from analysts' perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a little bit of a contradictory narrative that then Aon came out with, notably talking about how the casualty market didn't harden quite as drastically as we saw the property cat market harden. And that was sort of, again, something we assumed it wouldn't take the same rate that property cat took. The market's showing anywhere from 36 to 50% rate increases for property cat on a rate adjusted or loss adjusted basis, or risk adjusted basis, pardon. But that the fact that casualty is sort of remaining a little bit more stable will sort of have an impact on those carriers who have more casualty heavy books, or at least help them minimize the hit that they're going to feel across their reinsurance spend.
Yeah, and I think it's easy for us to lose sight of a few lines of business here where the bulk of people in our industry will have experienced a really tough renewal season, but actually having spoken with a few brokers in the cyber space, for example, they've been almost sheltered from what's been going on and have seen further sort of rating decreases, and that has made for a topsy-turvy experience of what's meant to have been the hardest renewals ever. But of course, most of the industry have been sharing their war stories with us over the last month or so.
One of the other interesting pieces that sort of off the back of that is this report that Galllagher has just put out, talking about the natural cat losses in 2022 are probably going to be more than 140 billion now, right? And this is the 5th year since 2017 that they've gone over 100 billion sort of in nat cat losses. So not only does it feel like the industry won't ever sort of move into a world where it's sub 100 for sustained periods, so the industry is sort of shifting and adapting to that. But it's going to make it harder still going into this next renewal season off the back of another very sizable cat year.
Yeah, and I think you're starting to see a number of organizations realizing that and starting to look at how that's affected their results over the last several years. And actually, we saw this month two leadership changes, both for similar, I think, reasons, in the sense that continuous challenges related to catastrophe and experiences and low profitability, low return on equity have meant that some firms feel like they're just continuously struggling and unable to get to where they really should be. But because of this loss activity, so we saw SCOR and Direct Line respectively, I think casualties in the boardroom as a result of this frustration, I think, that investors are seeing in terms of why are we not getting higher returns? And the answer to your point has been, I think, well, actually the whole loss environment has shifted dramatically from where it was before.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think we're just beginning to touch the surface of that. Most results are going to start coming out over the sort of coming weeks and months. And I would be surprised if those are the only two sort of changes that firms make once the sort of results land. So I think that's a space to watch, and we'll probably touch on in future news updates for sure. And then the last one I wanted to sort of bring up, because I thought it was interesting, is again back to the analysts here, but there's this recognition that the alternative capital shortage is sort of also impacting this sort of rate environment. And historically, that we've always seen whenever the market begins to harden, it's a great opportunity for alternative sources of capital to enter and sort of provide additional capacity to the market and take advantage of the opportunity that's available. That doesn't seem to be quite as attractive as maybe it was 4, 5, 6 years ago. So again, as we're looking at this sort of supply demand imbalance, the lack of new sources of alternative capital is going to continue to have an impact on what this the market, especially property cat market, does.
Yeah, and I don't think this is a insurance specific thing. I think just that across alternative investments as a class in general, that are meant to provide some kind of diversification. The bar used to be very low for a given investor's portfolio because general rates of return were so flat or very, very low. So you could get away with many years providing a pretty lousy return in the scheme of things. But I think now we're getting to the point where it's so easy to get a good return with a safe and simple investment that actually risk as an asset class in terms of natural hazard risk or exposure to insurance risk has to really step up its game to be able to attract a wider pool of third-party capital investors. But price increases have been significant, so we shall see. There may be more mouths to feed very soon.
Yeah, that's definitely one that we'll keep an eye on. And you're right, when opportunity becomes available, there's always people who want to come in and take advantage of that. But that's a whistle stop tour of the most interesting things that we saw in January 2023. So we always keep this one a bit short and sweet, but stay tuned and we will update everyone for the news at the end of February. Thanks, everyone.
See you next month.